Hi, everybody. We are here in the Normal West Virtual Lab, and we're going to talk about the use of Cisco WebEx in our virtual lab settings. We have one of these both here at Normal West and over at Normal Community. The equipment and the process that I talk about here today is going to be identical in the room in Normal Community. You just might see things in a different place, that's all. Okay, so I wanted to start by acting as though we are just walking into this room for the very first time. So you'll notice that we have two large monitors here at the front, and they're both not turned on. And we have a couple of cameras in the front here as well. And then what you can't see is that in the back of the room, there is also one large monitor, one TV screen, and another camera. All of this stuff is turned off right now. Finally, on that side of the room, you'll see a white little box that is going to be referred to as the codec. That is what's going to control this whole system. So if I'm walking into the room for the very first time, I'm going to come over to this codec and I'm just going to give it a tap. Now that's going to wake everything up in the room. Not only did the codec turn on, but you'll also see that the monitors in the front both turned on, and these cameras woke up as well. So that's how you know that everything is now up and ready to start working. So in our previous video, we talked a little bit about using Cisco WebEx with just your laptop or any computer that has a microphone and a video recorder. The same applies to this room. There are microphones all throughout the room. There are speakers all throughout the room, and then you have the cameras as well. These two front-facing cameras are going to allow the audience member or the person you're bringing in to talk to you to see everybody who's sitting in the chairs out here. And then the camera in the back is going to track you if you are the teacher and you're presenting. Now, all of these cameras actually do track. So the one in the back, if I walk around in the front here, that one is going to move along with me and keep me in frame. And these front cameras are really neat because if you have a class full of 30 kids in here and one of them raises their hand to ask a question of the person who you're bringing into your classroom, this is going, once it hears their voice, it's going to zoom in right on their face, so that the person on the other end is not just seeing a big class full of people, they're getting an up close and personal view of that individual person who's talking at the time, right? Okay, so those pieces of equipment are what make this room different from using your laptop and just using Cisco through your laptop. It provides a much larger, more immersive experience in here. Okay, so how do we actually get this up and going? We talked about your personal room in the other video, and the single easiest way to connect up with another person is for you to give them the link to your personal room, and then for you to get into your personal room using the system. So to do that, over here at the codec, you would come and you would hit dial, and then you're going to type in your personal room. And if I go ahead and do that, I'm going to switch to the keyboard here, and I'm going to say Mullins at unit 5 .webex.com, and then call.
The host. Enter the host pin followed by pound. If you are not the host,
okay,
press pound.
I'm going to go ahead and do this and then explain what I did in just a second.
You will now be connected to the meeting.
Okay, so let me kind of walk through what I just did there. I used my personal room email address, if you want to call it that, or my link to call my personal room from that machine. And that was my username at unit5.webex.com. So the very first time that you do that, you could type that full thing in. I'll show you here in a minute that after you do it once, you can just save it as a favorite, and it'll make it much easier every time you come in after that. Now, once I called into my personal room, you heard the lovely WebEx lady tell me that if I am the host of the meeting, which in this case I am, then I can identify myself by putting in my personal PIN number. And that personal PIN number is something that is set up right at the beginning when you set up your WebEx account. It's actually talked about in the previous video. You can also go in and change that personal PIN number at any time. So if you wanted something that just made a whole lot more sense to you, you can go into your WebEx dashboard online and go into your preferences, and you can change that personal PIN number. And then once I entered that in and hit pound, then I was connected to my personal room. So what we see up here on the two monitors, if there was a person who was also in my personal room and connected to me, they would show up full screen on that right monitor, right? They'd be super big, easy for everybody to see, easy for everybody to hear. The other monitor you'll see looks different. This one is reserved for two different purposes. First of all, if the person on the other end of the call is sharing anything with you, so if they share their screen, they share a video, whatever, that will come up full screen on this second TV monitor, which is great because you can still see the person and you can see what they're wanting to show to you at the same time. Very big, very easy. The other way that this one can be used is if you want to share something with them, then what you want to share can show up here as well. So I'm going to come back over here to the codec, and this time I'm going to go to share and then choose this PC input and then hit share. And now what you're going to see happen is a computer, just a regular district computer screen is going to show up on that left monitor. And then on the keyboard and mouse that is here in the room, I can go ahead and sign into this. Now, what is shown on this monitor on the left right now is being shared to everybody in the personal room, right? So if there are things that you want to display to them, you can do that very easily as well. I know, again, you can't see this, but the back monitor is mirroring everything that's showing up on this screen. Okay, so we've talked about what it looks like if somebody else is in here, the ways that you can share materials with those people in this room. Other things about the codec that are worth pointing out: you can at any time increase and decrease the volume. So if you find that the person on the other end of the call is way too loud or way too soft, you can adjust that. You can also mute at any time. And that is going to be muting all of your microphones in this room. So if there's anything that you need to say to the class, but you don't want your participants to hear that at all, you can mute. And then we can unmute. If I wanted to stop sharing my screen, I can just go ahead and hit stop sharing. All right, now you'll see that that image has disappeared off of our monitor screens. And then another thing that I'll note here before I kind of end this call is that you do not want to mess around with any of the layouts or any of the camera options. All of that stuff is set to defaults that are going to work perfectly, and there's no reason to change them. In fact, changing them can cause some disruptions, so we don't want to do that. Okay, so next I want to talk about how we can actually record this session in here. This can be very useful if maybe the presenter that you're bringing in can only meet for one of your class periods, but you want to share that experience with all of your other classes as well. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm actually going to end this call. So I'm going to come over here to the codec and I'm going to hit end. And then to get back into WebEx, this time we're going to do it using the computer that's in here. So much like you would if you are just using WebEx with your laptop. Okay, so I'm going to come to Google Chrome and I'm going to navigate to that link that is standard for everybody using WebEx in the district. It's unit5.webex.com/meet/your username. Now, when I come here, the first thing I want to do is I want to log in. I want to make sure that WebEx knows who I am. So I go to log in the upper right, and then I just put in my username and password. All right, now once I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and hit Start Meeting. And now when you're using your laptop, when you're selecting an audio and video connection, you would choose the mic and the camera that's on your laptop. Here, you'll see that it says call my video system, and that's what's in there by default. And that's what I want to do, so I'm just going to go right to that big green button and hit connect audio and video. And what's going to happen is it's actually going to call the codec that's over here on the right, and we're going to answer that call. Now over here, I'm going to hit answer. Okay, so now we are in our personal room in pretty much the same way we were before. We just got into it a different way. We didn't call directly from the codec like we did the first time. Instead, we started the meeting from our web browser. But if I go back now and I share my screen again, you'll see we have the meeting center up here, and we can come up to recorder and we can press record. And now after you've pressed record and this has started, we can minimize this and we can go about our call like normal. They can share their screen with us, we can still share things with them. All of that's the same, but now we have started a recording and this whole thing is going to be available for us to view after the fact. All right? So that can be very useful in certain circumstances. You don't always need to use it. A lot of people simply call directly from the codec because it's a little quicker, and they get in, they do their thing, they have their meeting, and then they finish. No big deal. This is only necessary if you want to actually record the session. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end that call. And while I'm here, since we've ended a call, I'm going to show you that if I go, instead of just dialing my personal room again, I could just go to contacts now and go to recents, and you'll see that my personal room is listed here. Okay, so you might, once you've called, you could have a number listed, and then if you hold on that number for a second, go to these three little dots, you can add that to your favorites. So once you've called your personal room once, where you had to type your whole username in, you could just add that to favorites and come here every time and look at the list of favorites and call it directly from there. It makes things much simpler once you've done it once. Okay, that pretty much wraps up the use of the WebEx room. The only other thing that you can do from here is you can directly call the other virtual lab. So in both rooms, here and at Normal Community, if you go to Contacts and Favorites, you'll find that one of those options is the other virtual lab, so the Normal Community WebEx room. That will make a direct connection between the two. The quality is wonderful, and that can be very useful for, say, having PLC meetings or other district meetings where you want to connect up with another teacher and be able to share things and see each other and work together. The only thing about those is that they cannot be recorded, which I don't think is that big of a detriment, but just keep that in mind. Okay, when you are all done, this whole system will shut down automatically after about 5 minutes of inactivity. So it is not required that you turn anything off when you're finished in one of these rooms. If you would like to, you can go to the codec, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little settings gear, and then you can press standby. And then the codec, the cameras, the monitors, they will all go into standby, and it'll be just like when you first walked into the room. The next person coming in, come over to the codec, tap it, everything will come back. So thanks for watching. I really hope that you take advantage of these rooms, bring in some wonderful speakers, connect to people all over the world, and please contact myself or Amber O'Day if you're at Community, and we would be more than happy and willing to work with you the first time through, set it all up, walk through all the details, and make sure everything goes perfectly. Thanks again.